And I'm gonna mute everybody. Hello, everybody. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. Did you guys make anything good? Anything good at all? Nobody? No pumpkin pies? Did you like the link I sent you about the history of pumpkin pie?
I made stuffed salmon.
Oh, nice. Stuffed salmon, yeah.
And it was fun. We made the stuffing from scratch and it actually turned out pretty good.
Oh, that's good. Nice. What about did you guys see the link? That fun link? No? Ronald, no? Oh, see how it is. See how it is. But I'm gonna give this to Chef Suzanne to talk about this past week's assignments. How is this past week's assignments looking? Are they looking good?
Actually, very good. I don't think this was I don't think it was necessarily a hard assignment, but there was a lot of little steps. And I think in general, tracking that tomato sauce from the purchasing all the way through serving made you really have to think. And so this particular assignment really went kind of basic. And I think I did mention it to a lot of you in your feedback, that this is a pretty common thing that you may have to do is, so if you're not available to receive your order, so you place the order, you know exactly what you're going to purchase, and then it shows up, and normally you check it in, right? It's your money, you're going to make sure it's perfect, but you're sick or you're out of town. And you've got to trust in your staff. So you want to make sure they know exactly what your expectations are as far as best practices in the industry and what you want, right? So you don't want to just say, make sure I got bacon, right? You want to make sure that it's the brand of bacon that you chose, that the package isn't torn, that it's not expired, that it's, you're looking for all those little bits of information. And the same thing with storing. Once you've received it, now you're like, okay, this is exactly what I wanted. It's in good shape. Where am I going to put it now? So you're going to put it in the cooler on the bottom shelf, or you're going to put it on, such and such. You're going to rotate it. So FIFO, you're going to do all that stuff. So I think most of you did a really, really nice job with this, of tracking that food, because it does seem kind of weird. Why are we talking about this in a menu class? Well, because if your food isn't good quality, it won't matter what's on your menu. If you don't have good quality food and are taking care of it to be able to offer your guests the best quality, and that's a lot of money that you have invested in your food, so you want to take the best care of it as possible. So I think those that I've graded, I've still got some grading, but I'm gonna say 2 thumbs up this week, so well done.
All right, that's perfect. So for those who watched the little video feed for week 4, also, you guys knew that I have a cold. Isn't it great that you get to not be around me? You can just watch from the convenience of your own home and not worry about spreading germs. Fantastic. My throat's also doing that thing where it'll go back and forth, where I told Chef Suzanne that I sounded like a teenage boy going through like the hormonal changes because my voice kept on going up and down and cracking. So that might happen during the live session. So please, just bear with me.
Sounds a lot better than
so, I'm sorry?
You sound a lot better than you did this morning.
I know, thank you. Yeah, it's been going back and forth, but yeah, we'll see how I do. So we're doing week 4. We're talking about cost. And budgets are a thing of life, right? We always have to have a budget. We have a budget for going out to the grocery store, what we're going to buy. We always have some form of a budget that we have to abide by, right? Because that's going to determine, having your budget is going to determine where you're going to get your stuff from. Are you going to be able to go to Walmart to pick something up? Or are you going to have to go to, or are you going to go to, Saks Fifth Avenue to pick something up, or Nordstrom or something like that? Having a budget helps you decide what you're going to be able to buy. You do it all the time for yourself. You may even do it without even realizing it, right? Because you may pick up this watch and you're like, oh yeah, that's a good watch. How much would you pay for it? Are you going to pay 50 bucks? Are you going to pay $10? What's your price that you're going to pay in order to get that watch? Would you buy it? Those are things that you instantly do in your head. And now we're just taking what you do in everyday life and we're going to put it towards your business and your menu and the food that you're going to pick and decide what you're doing. So we have these delightful costs. Now we have fixed costs versus variable costs. Now there's more costs, but we're just breaking it down to the basic right here. So we're going to do fixed versus variable. So your fixed costs, I did this delightful chart for you guys, is the costs that always stay the same. It does not matter that the sales have gone up and down. This right here is always going to be the same number no matter what your sales volume is. What's a good example of a fixed cost? And you guys say something.
Cups.
The price you're getting for the item.
Nope.
Your water bill.
Utilities.
Cost of energy and keeping the lights on.
Yep, utility bill. Your
Rent or lease payment.
rent, yep. Your,
Labor.
nope. Like your insurance, those kind of things. You always have to pay the water bill, right? You always got to pay rent. You always have to pay insurance. You always have to pay those things every single month. You got to pay your Wi-Fi, right? You got to pay cable, Wi-Fi, your phone bills. All of those things you have to pay every single month, correct? So that's going to be considered a fixed cost. Now your variable costs, that's going to change, and it's going to be depending on how busy you are. And this is where your food, your labor, your beverage, those are part of your variable cost. Think about seasonability. If you are super, super busy during the winter time, are you going to have more staff? Are you going to have the same amount of staff for the winter time than you will have for the summertime? Or are you going to have more people in the winter time because you're really, really busy? If you're up in the ski lodge, right?
Depends on where you're at in the country.
I'm sorry, I'm in Colorado. So up in, like, say we're gonna be up in Aspen, gonna be hanging out with celebrities, and you're gonna be super busy during the winter time, but you're not gonna be as busy during the summertime. So you're going to have more labor during the winter time than you will during the summertime. And that's why that cost is gonna vary. It's also like the time of day, right? If you have a dinner rush and your lunch rush, you want to be prepped and you want to have enough people on to be able to handle those rushes. And then you have your fixed, then you have your variable, and then you combine it to do the total cost. So all of this right here is all combined, and that equals your total cost right there, right? And so your sales, that right there, that's what your profit is. That in between all of this stuff, that is what you're looking at to see. Because you want to make a profit. But one of the main problems with this industry, we are an industry of pennies, right? Have you guys heard that saying? Anybody? Industry of pennies? Nobody? Nobody? Because we always have to count our pennies. We count every single possible thing that we can. Oh. Because you want to make certain that you account for everything. This is your business. This is your baby. You need to make certain that you know all of the costs and where all that money is coming in and where is it going out to. Because it's your money at the end, right? This is your business. This is your money. You need to make certain that you're managing it properly. So you have to figure out your food costs. And then to figure out your food cost, if I go back to my handy dandy slides, you notice that it's usually between that 28 to 32% is that industry average. Now, do you guys remember we often give you that 30-30-30-10 rule in classes? Have you guys seen that in your other classes, the 30-30-30-10 rule? You'll see it a lot in your other classes, so don't worry. In cost controls and entrepreneurship, this comes up a lot because you have that 30-30-30 rule where it's 30%. What do you think 30% is? 30% of, anybody?
Cost.
Food
Yep,
cost.
food cost, and then 30% would be labor, and then 30%, what?
Profits.
10% is gonna be your profit.
Your other 30% are gonna be your bills, like your
Census.
Yeah, your other bills and stuff. Wait,
utilities.
yep. So yeah. So that's where you wanna make sure you're staying in the actual 28 to 32%. And we say percentage because that's what we usually go off of. You don't normally say like, it sounds better, right? If I say we made $1,000 this past weekend versus we had like 90% occupancy rate, what sounds better? Like 90% sounds more efficient, right? That sounds better than saying just $1,000. You don't know what that $1,000 is implying. You don't know how much you're supposed to make. But if you say, oh, well, we were at 90%, that's pretty good. Versus if I said $1,000, but then I was like, oh yeah, we're only at 10%, that $1,000 now sounds bad. So that's why we use percentages, so that you use percentages in order to really figure out what the whole 100%, where everything is going. You can really make certain that you make the circle, make it whole, and figure out what all the costs are. And so for your food cost is really important, right? It's an important part because we're dealing with food. You have your opening inventory, and you add your purchases, and then you subtract your closing inventory to get your cost of good. Now remember, for your inventory, you got to make certain that you realize that whatever your opening inventory is, that is the same number as the closing inventory from the day before. So just remember that. So whatever your closing inventory was from the day before, that is going to be now your opening inventory. Does that make sense for everybody? All right, cool. And then to give you an idea for your food costs, we have our chicken wings. We're buying in bulk, right? We're a restaurant. We don't buy one chicken wing. We buy 40 pounds worth of chicken wings. And we got those chicken wings for $80. Now we have this delightful amount here. So you figured out that 80 divided by 40, it's $2 a pound. If we're going to give people here a half a pound, how much is it? What's the cost? If it's $2 a pound for chicken wings and we just did half a pound, how much is that?
$1.
$1, correct. And then when you're looking at this whole plate, what is on everything here? What do you guys see on this, your actual plate? Because you can't just look at the chicken wings, right?
Chips and sauce.
The sauce and the chips.
paper,
Yep, you got sauce, you got chips.
Yeah,
What else you
like-
got?
napkin, you
The
got
basket,
sauce,
the
the
paper.
the fork.
Yep, you got all that stuff. You got the little parchment paper, you got the little cups, you got your chips. Those even look like they're fancy and that they were like done right then and there, that they fried them themselves. Nice fresh chips going on. So you have to equate all of this into your food costs, because all of this is going out to the actual customer. So garnish, if you're putting a little doily or like what they did with the little parchment paper, you have to include that. You have to include all those type of things. So this could end up costing, I'm sorry, what?
What about the cost of extra napkins or people breaking glasses? Is there a spot for that?
You know, that would be under your cost of error, which we kind of actually go over a bit more in like entrepreneurship, I believe. In cost controls. Do they go over that in cost controls, Chef Suzanne?
I think so. I think it's actually in both.
Isn't it? Yeah, because we talk about it a little bit in entrepreneurship, but then I think they also talk about it in cost controls, like the cost of error, because, you know, if something gets comped, you have to account for that. What if, you know, what if the cook made a steak like well done and the person wanted it rare? And where's that steak going? You know, that's an error. That's a cost you still have to consider. So cost of error wouldn't necessarily come into like this part right here. It's part of it, but that's going to go into your like profit and loss statement and doing your balance sheets and all that kind of stuff. So we go over that in entrepreneurship, and I think Chef Tyson also does a little bit in cost controls. Correct? I'm looking at you, Chef Suzanne.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So then we have that nice, delightful, let me get back to it. This nice, delightful thing. And you want your food costs, you found out that it costs $5 for all of this stuff down here, right? So you ended up creating the percentage, because remember, we're doing the percentage. We're going to do that higher end percentage. So you divide 5 divided by 0.32, because 0.32 is 32%, right? And then it's 15.62. But all of this included the condiments, the garnish, remember all that good stuff. And, but the one thing that we also need to do is the labor. Labor is key. How many people want to have their place do everything from scratch? There's like only a few videos. People from scratch? Yay! People are gonna buy stuff? Yay! There you go. You have to also include your labor, because those chicken wings, did those take 5 minutes to make, or did they take 5 hours to make? Because that 5 minutes versus 5 hours, that makes a big, big difference. And I think I told you guys a story, but I don't remember if I did, how Starbucks actually like had somebody come in and they did a whole efficiency to see how well they were doing on their timing and everything. And they ended up realizing that they were wasting seconds, and all of those seconds added up, and those are pennies that add up. So if you, like, they ended up noticing the ice scoop wasn't big enough to actually fill their giant venti. Is it venti's the largest? Is that one the largest one? I think the venti is the largest. Yeah, 20, venti, 20. Yeah, okay. Sorry. And then, so they ended up buying bigger ice scoops so that the barista only had to do 1 scoop, and it had, that ice scoop had venti, grande, tall on it, the little label, so they only had to scoop once, and that saved seconds. And that was like pennies shaved off for your customer. It was shaved off for how long it actually took. You could make, like, all those seconds added up means that you can make another drink for some other person. So you're looking to see how you can make things as efficient as possible. But this also goes back to your concept. What type of concept are you going for? Are you going to be like buying puff pastry and making it yourself? Or I'm sorry, are you going to be buying puff pastry or are you going to be making it yourself? If you buy puff pastry, you know, the giant ones with the sheets, that's not real butter. It's not. I can eat it. I have a dairy allergy and I can eat it. That's not real puff pastry. Or are you going to do the process and like puff pastry? It's like a 3-day process, 3 to 4 day process. It takes a long time. The same thing if you're going to smoke something. Are you going to make a brine, smoke the salmon for, 12 hours, make the brine that has to be in for at least 24 hours, smoke that salmon? Or are you just going to go and buy it at the store already done for you? Those are the type of things that you have to consider, because that labor is going to be more if you have to smoke that item versus if you're just going to buy it. McDonald's and Wendy's, they're a perfect example because their food cost is higher because they got everything pre-made. So it doesn't take very long for people to actually make anything. Versus if you're going to make it from scratch, like your labor is going to cost a lot more. So if we go back to my delightful pizza, see that pizza? Yay! You guys aren't excited about this? Find all these fun little food graphs and charts for you guys. Yeah, Roya smiled. All right. So if you notice your prime cost right here, your prime cost is the cost of your beverage and your food and your labor all combined together. And that is usually around 60%. See that right there? Boom, 60%. That's a big chunk of that pizza going straight to your prime cost. And you notice that the cost of goods and the cost of labor, those are both at that 30%. So labor is just as important as the cost of food, because it really depends on the type of food you are going to be making. McDonald's, they have a low labor and a high cost of food. Their cost of food is higher because everything's pre-made, but their labor cost is lower versus like high-end Michelin star rated place. Their labor costs are going to be higher, but their food costs are going to be lower because they're buying all the flour and sugar and everything and making everything from scratch. So remember that, and for those who are doing the food truck, thinking like, well, I'm going to be making everything, I don't have to worry as much about labor. You still have to worry about labor. That is your time. That is your precious, precious time to make your business grow. You need to be compensated for it. So don't just think, oh, well, it's a labor of love and all that stuff. Like, no, I want to make good food, but make it reasonable. But if you make it good food and make it reasonable and you have to do all the work and you never get a day off, and then you're going to get burnt out and you're going to get sloppy and make mistakes, and the quality is going to go down. So remember, you have to include yourself in the labor. Labor, labor, labor. Labor is so important. Am I right, Chef?
Yes. And I think just coming off of Thanksgiving, and I know you talked a little bit about this, but just coming off Thanksgiving, I think most of anybody who maybe bought a turkey, you maybe spent, we'll say what, maybe $20 on a turkey. And then you took it home, you maybe brined it or seasoned it and roasted it. But basically, that turkey was $20. But if you had bought that already made from a place in town and all you had to do was carve it, that turkey would probably cost you $75, right? So you're paying for someone to have done that labor. And it's kind of the same idea as what you're looking at is you have to think about all the work that you and your staff are going to be putting into making every single thing. And it's like Chef talked about the puff pastry. Think about rolls. Who made rolls for Thanksgiving, right? versus who just bought a package of Hawaiian rolls at the store. They're more expensive, but you saved a lot of time from not having to make it. But if you'd have made them, the quality would have been better, right? So there's give and take on all of this, but you really have to be aware of how important labor is. It's really easy for us to kind of forget about that because you can't really see labor. You can see food, so you can see the food cost, but you can't always see all the work that goes on behind the scenes on what's going on with different dishes. So, that's a really big part of the assignment this week is recognizing labor and food costs. So.
Yes, Jesus.
Hey, Chef, at what point do you incorporate per chair or per table cost as far as turnover from one customer to the next?
Wait, say that again?
Okay, at what point do you incorporate the cost per table or per chair on turnovers from one customer to the next customer?
So you're saying like the total, like your gross amount, your gross revenue?
Yeah, like is there a certain number of turnovers you have to have per table to actually start making a profit?
Well, and that's where you need to, that's where, thank you, Jesus, because you just brought me to this slide. Look at that beautiful transition. You need to manage the numbers. You need to make certain that you can develop your sales forecasting, because looking at all your costs, how much you made, because you have your gross revenue versus your net profit. And remember, look at it like your gross revenue is like a giant ocean. And then you're going to take your net and then you're going to swoop up all that fish. So that fish is really the money that you actually made, because that gross profit, like the gross revenue, all of that is everything together, and that doesn't include your costs. So you're taking that net and swooping it in to figure out what the profit actually is. Does that make sense for you guys? Did you like my analogy?
Yeah, kind of.
But this is where you also have to factor in, like, once you figure out your cost per day, you need to really look at and do the analysis and then go through how you're actually going to be, like, how much money you actually made. This is where you actually do like your return on investment and your return on profit, like those type of things. You're looking at the numbers, and that would be good in like your cash flow and your income statements and your balance sheets and all of those stuff. That's where you get all that total. But to figure it out, this is where having something like a good POS system comes into play, because your POS system is going to help you see all the stuff that's happening. Like, was there a cost and error? Was there, how many sales did I make that day? Your POS system will actually help you, like, put all of that stuff into a pretty little like spreadsheet so you can actually look at all of it. How many people know what a POS system is? What's a POS system?
Point of sale.
Yep, point of sale. And have you guys worked with the POS system?
Yes.
Yeah, so what does it show you guys?
Almost all of your expenses and where the money's going to.
What did you say? Sorry, all of your expenses or what?
And where the money is going.
And where the money's going? What else does it show?
Basically shows a complete breakdown of everything that's entered. Because it's only going to put out information as good as what you put in.
So it gives you a breakdown, and it shows you what's all the stuff when you get a ticket. What shows up on your ticket in the line?
All the itemized foods that are coming, all the menu orders from each server.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the menu orders from each server. You can tell how many people have allergies. You can see what everybody's eating and what they're not eating, right? You can figure out how much an average like bill is actually cost, like an average bill for a customer, how much each customer is spending at your establishment. You can see how many actual like turnovers you're getting, how many people are coming into your establishment. It can even break it down into time frames too, right? Because it goes off of time. So how much time is it actually taking to, like, how many people are you serving at certain time frames? And all that wonderful, beautiful information can be put into a delightful, wonderful spreadsheet or Excel like graph and all of those great things to help you understand where your business is and if it needs to go, like, and what you need to do. Is your menu working? Like, if you're not getting that many sales, maybe now's the time you have to remember my little plan, do, check, act thing that I showed you guys in the beginning, and that little circle. Plan, do, check, act. Plan, do, check, act. You guys remember that? Everybody remember that? That nice little circle? Okay, Samantha, thank you. And so you guys are doing that little circle. It's a constant thing to always double check to see if you are actually developing and growing the way that you want to grow. And then if we go to, now, does anybody have any other questions before we go?
I do. In your little pizza cost, you showed 7% as a interest expense. What are you paying interest on?
Interest?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no. I almost ended the meeting. I was trying to share the slide and I was like, no, don't end the meeting. Interest, let me pull that back up for you. So, you know, you always have, interest is a part of our lives, right? Credit cards, you pay interest on credit cards. You know, like, and if somebody uses a credit card at your establishment, you actually, not only does that person who owns the credit card, if they don't pay their bill on time, they get like that crazy, like, was it like 18 to 20% interest charged to it, you know, to be like, I don't remember what they call it, but they call it a fee. They have the same exact style thing on the other end. So like, you know, the major ones, Visa, like American Express, Discover, all of those ones, every time that somebody uses a card at your establishment, you actually have to give them a small percentage. It's usually about like that between 4 and 7% of that total sale goes to the credit card company, because they're giving you their, like, they're letting you use that. So that's where that interest is coming from.
Okay.
Some are more expensive than others. So that's where you'll see some places will be like, does not accept, you know, American Express, or doesn't only accepts Discover and Visa, and, you know, like those kind of things, is because some are higher than others. So that percentage, some of them are like, you know, you're like, dear Lord, that's really high to pay just to swipe a card. Hence why when I go to a restaurant, I pay cash, because I'm like, I know better. So, but that's where that interest is coming from for that. Does anybody else have any other questions before we go on? Nobody? All right. So then we get into choosing your supplier. Yay! The fun part. Now, there's going to be many different factors that will go into what type of supplier you're going to have. The size of your business. Are you going to be a giant, huge thing with 200 tables and, you know, like a whole banquet hall, and you have all this room to be able to hold all of these great, awesome things that you just purchased, and have a giant walk-in freezer and walk-in refrigerator? Or are you going to be a small food truck and everything has to fit in this tiny little section in the commissary kitchen that you're renting with like 15 other people and 15 other businesses? So the size of your business is going to determine how much you can actually get, because certain places and certain suppliers will only deliver if you make, like, if you have a certain amount on the truck that's going to them. So if they say like, okay, well, you need like, 15 like items to make it, to be able to get it delivered, you have to make certain that you can handle those 15 items. My B&B, we were not big. I did not have that much storage space at all, like none. So, we had to, luckily we had Shamrock Foods that we were able to go to the actual like restaurant supply store and get all the restaurant quality items that are slightly bigger, but then not have to worry about the higher price that you're going to find in a grocery store. And then like good old Sam's Club, we had to use Sam's Club too to get some things, because we just no big like Cisco or US Foods, we were too small, they would not deliver to us. And then it's also going to depend on your concept, because if you are trying to be all organic, you want farm to table, you have to make certain that your suppliers and your purveyors who you're choosing can actually give you organic farm to table items, right? How many people are trying to go for, farm to table, strong community ties, all that kind of stuff? How many of you guys raise your hands? How many? I see one. I see Samantha. See Anthony. Austin. Paul, thumbs down. There you go. So that's awesome. But you have to also make certain that whatever your concept's going to be, that you are keeping with the quality that you want to have at your establishment. And the quality that you're going to have also goes back to your purveyor. What type of quality are they going to be able to provide to you? And at what price? And this is where, once again, like when I brought up like my watch, like, I don't even know what kind of watch this is. It's a Fossil watch. Would you guys pay like $50 for it? Would you pay $20 for it?
I got a cell phone.
Cell phone?
Yeah.
Oh yes. Well, I have a delightful Samsung. My husband has an iPhone, and I thoroughly enjoy saying, "This isn't the droid you're looking for," to him every single time he goes by. But that's that. What are you willing to pay? It's part of, how's that quality? What type of relationship do you have with that purveyor? Do they have a great, do you guys have a great relationship where you know the salesperson well, you know the delivery guys well, they work with you on delivering when you want them to deliver? Or do they do that delightful key drop system that we talked about? You guys remember the key drop from last week? Ronald, I know you're there, Ronald.
Remember, sir.
Nice.
It's when you give the drivers the keys, and then early in the morning, well, too early, so they let themselves in and out.
Nice, exactly. So you have to make certain that you are actually making sure that you have that good relationship and that it's an honest one, and you don't want to, because sometimes it can be hard to find the right distributor. It can be hard when, and you're in a small town, and like my friend lives in like the middle of nowhere in Illinois, where it's like, like farmland for miles and miles and miles. And, there's like the one restaurant in town and the one gas station, that kind of thing. it's really hard to, be able to find a good distributor. So you want to make certain that you have those good relationships so that they will deliver to you, even if you're in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by farmland for miles. It's really pretty where she lives, but yeah, surrounded. So let me get to my little slide thing for you guys again. Boop. And you have all this stuff. How can you actually try to save some money? Cross-training is a great way to actually save money. You saw your labor costs, you saw your food costs, and you're like, how am I going to make it more efficient? Starbucks, they made it more efficient, right? You can do the same thing. You can cross-train your staff, because what happens if somebody's sick? If you cross-train, you can have somebody jump on and not have to worry about, oh, only that person knows how to bake bread. Nobody else knows, so we're done for. You don't have to worry about that. Employee meals and drinks, are you going to let them have free reign, or are you going to allow them to have one meal and one drink per shift? Those are going to be what you decide, because you don't want to, you want people to enjoy the food, but you don't want to also go bankrupt because you just fed everybody lunch, breakfast, dinner, all of the different, you don't want them eating all day. And then using the same ingredients. So there's a restaurant in town, they have lobster on the menu. They have it as an entree. They also make lobster mac and cheese. And they also have a side of lobster mashed potato that they have. They're using the ingredients in different dishes. It's called carryover production. So if you have one item, you can carry it over and put it onto other items on your menu. That's a great approach to use. It's also very helpful if, you're looking at seasonability. Are you going to really pay that extra money for the kiwi and the strawberries that are not fresh and mango? Or are you just going to, because now it's winter, just going to make something with a delightful pear because pears are in season, right? Those are things you need to consider. And then there's the good old, how much are your employees actually taking home and slightly stealing from you? Now, stealing happens. I'm not saying that everyone is bad, but you should be prepared to and know the signs to watch out for. And I gave you guys 2 links in a delightful YouTube video right here.
Chef, we can't hear it.
You can't hear it?
No.
Aw, that's weird. Because it shows up on mine. I don't know why it's not here on yours. Well, you guys have that delightful link, so you can look at it yourself. And it talks about how 75% of staff in a restaurant will steal at least once from an establishment. So, and it goes over things to look out for. And then I'll try to figure out why you can't hear it. That's interesting. It's also good to know for next time. But like I said, you don't want to just assume everybody's stealing, but you need to be prepared and you need to know what to look for. So you can stop it from happening. I know one guy who worked at a bar, and I asked him, I was like, oh, wow, how do you do? He's like, oh, yeah, I'm doing pretty good. He's like, during the weekend shift, I make about like $800 a week. And I'm like, wow, that's awesome. I'm like, man, I'm doing it wrong. Come to find out, like a few months later, he actually got fired because he was stealing. So that's actually how he made $800 in a week, during the weekend. Because he was stealing it. So just knowing what to look for so that it doesn't go on for a long, long time is really, really important, because that is your money. you know, that is another cost that you have to look out for. And Chef Suzanne now gets to have the awesome privilege to go over your guys' assignment because, where's my little thing? Where's my little thing? I'm all excited about it. I made it just for you guys. Boom. See that? Look at that. No laughing? Nobody? Oh, okay, I see some laughing now. Haha. So, take it away. Your assignment is due, as always, on Tuesday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. And Chef Suzanne will take it away.
I will. I am going to switch and share my screen. That's not the one I wanted. Let's try that again. Wait, what are you all seeing?
The Scoffier assignments.
Yay! Okay, cool. I'm looking at myself on the other page, like I don't know how this works. All right, so here is your assignment this week. And again, I think this one is more of like a thought, you know, a thinking assignment where you've got to kind of go like, All right, so what you're going to do is there's 3 menus here and you'll choose one. And then there's actually a template somewhere. Let me see if I can find the template. Somewhere there's a template. There's the template. All right, so you're gonna make a copy of this template and it's gonna ask you, oh great, googly moogly, there we go. So pick one of these menus and then for it, you're going to look at the menu and then which item on the menu do you think would be the most expensive to make, explain why. Keep both food costs and labor costs in mind. All right, so you're gonna need to look at food costs or think about the food costs and the labor costs when you answer this. All right, so I'm gonna go back over here to the menu. All right, so this one here is Cafe Luke. Chef Luke wrote these, so I think all of them have Chef Luke's name in them. And so you're gonna look at these items and you're going to try and figure out which item on this menu was the most expensive to prepare. And it's not always going to be the item that's the most expensive. So you're gonna look at this and try to determine based on the information that you've got, looking at the items in the recipe and how, or in the item, the ingredients in the item, and then how long you think it might take. So that's where you're looking at the labor. And so I actually have what I think is a really good example on, I literally just came up with this while we were talking because I was like, oh, I know where I need to go. All right, so if we look at just these 4 items on the Taco Bell menu, if we were just to say which one of these is the most expensive to prepare, most of us might think, well, the rolled chicken taco 4-pack is $3.99, so that must be it. But I'm thinking it's probably going to be the spicy double chalupa, would be my guess. Can anybody think of why, even though the spicy double chalupa is cheaper, why it might be more expensive to produce that item?
Because it's more
Guacamole on it?
It's more ingredients in.
Okay, there's more ingredients in it.
on there.
It's got what?
More ingredients.
So it's got more ingredients. So when you're looking at that rolled chicken taco 4-pack, there's just the 4 tacos that were already made. So they are a little more expensive because they're already made, but there was nobody that had to assemble that, right? There just has to be somebody that just throws them in the deep fryer and then puts them in a to-go container. Whereas that spicy double chalupa, maybe somebody has to form the shell and then somebody's got to put in all those bazillions of ingredients in there. So even though the chicken tacos sell for more, a spicy double chalupa is probably more expensive to produce based on the food costs and on the labor.
The chalupa.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it also has avocado on it, which is really expensive.
Exactly. So you're looking at that kind of thing. And so that's essentially what you're going to do with these menus here. You're going to look at this and go, well, you know, your first instinct might be that the pork rillette is the most expensive. But then you may look at some of these other items and go, well, that one may not be as expensive to produce as some of the others. And so essentially that's what you're going to be doing, is looking at these menus and basing it on food costs and labor. And you need to consider both. So like it says here, keep both food costs and labor costs in mind. So when you actually look at the rubric, it is going to say, you know, based on food costs and labor costs. So you're gonna need to actually consider both of those and explain in the template why you think that that particular dish is going to be the most expensive to produce. Yes, Paul.
So are we to research the cost of these ingredients to come up with a price per pound? And is that how we're actually going to come up with an opinion on that?
No, I don't necessarily think you're going to have to research. Kind of like what we just did with, with the Taco Bell. Just looking at the item and the descriptions on them as far as how you think it's going to be prepared, to try and figure out, and then basically you have to justify your answer. You just have to explain why you think that one is the most expensive based on labor and food costs. Does that make sense? Cool. Erica, you have your hand up?
Yeah, good afternoon, Chef. So with the labor, are we just like basing it on how long it took to make the dish? That's how we base it on the labor?
Right, so you have to consider how long it would take to produce that dish, which would be the labor costs. So how which one of the items on the menu, you're gonna have to look at both, not just food and not just labor. You're gonna have to consider both. And then based on food and labor, which one do you think is going to be the most expensive item on that menu to produce? And I know somebody asked the question, one menu or one from each, just one item from one menu.
But how do you base that on as long as it took? Like, what do you like put numbers together, or I'm a little confused by that.
No, you're just going to have to, like I said, we just did with the Taco Bell. We assumed that the double chalupa is going to be a lot more time consuming because there's more parts to it and it's got to be assembled versus something that's just got to be thrown in the deep fryer, right? So
okay.
You're just basing it on, it is just assumptions, but that's why you have to back it up with your explanations as to why.
Okay, got it now. Thank you, Chef.
You're welcome. Kelly?
Yes, I have a question. Like, how will we know which items from the menu are made from scratch? Like, wouldn't that determine the cost or pre-made?
Well, I think in most of these, you're going to assume that most of these things are, I think all of these are going to be made from scratch. So it's going to be based more on the, for example, if there's a salad and then there's a steak dinner, you can probably assume that a salad will be a lot easier and less time consuming to produce than probably a steak dinner, right? So you're just going to kind of have to look at like I said, the ingredients and maybe what's going to take to produce that.
Yeah, there's a lot of hints around if you read the whole menu.
Yes.
Seems like.
There is some good information on them.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. All right, any other questions? Anybody? No? That's awesome. Yeah, I think y'all will do just fine on this. I think it's, like I said, it's more of a thought-provoking kind of thing, and then you have to kind of, think it through and then explain to me why you think that particular item on that menu. You just have to look at one menu, choose one item from one menu. You don't have to look at all three menus. You're just going to pick a menu, and then what is the most expensive item on that menu to produce.
And remember, guys, think about it like, we're investors. You're pitching your idea to us and your explanation. So it's really important to make that why count. You can't just say, I think it's duck because duck's expensive. Like, you need to actually put thought into it. Was it the way that the duck was actually made? Is a duck really expensive right now? Like, if you're saying it's expensive, that's fine, but why is it expensive? Did you find out that it's in season? Is it not in season? Are there a bunch of ducks hanging out? Because, hunting season happens, and then all those poor ducks, they're getting, the duck dynasty, they made their money making all those delightful duck call things. I can actually just do it with my hand. My dad taught me how to do it just with my hand. I don't know how many can do it that way. But No, she's been saying no. Nobody else does it?
No, I can't do that.
No?
I can't do a missile, let alone do that.
Can you do it for us?
Yeah, hold on. Let's see how I can do with my cold. And then you can like take one away each time you do it, and then it'll like change the type of duck or goose or whatever you're doing. Like, oh, hold on.
The many skills of Chef Rachel. They know no limit.
Being a farm girl helps to be a farm girl. You get to do all sorts of fun stuff. It was great. We had like ducks, and I'd have to like run home because the ducks would actually like go in front of the road and block all the school buses because I lived on the same street as our high school and our other schools. So I'd run home and shoo all the ducks back into our yard. It was fun. So, and then that's why it's important to do the why, right? And look at that description. That description, that's going with that concept. Are they showing that they're doing a bunch of local produce? Because, local doesn't necessarily mean cheaper, right? Because it's organic. They're not using any type of GMOs, any of that type of stuff. So that's going to be a little bit pricier. And are they using things like pan roasted and all those kind of things that take really long amount of time? So those are things you need to consider when you're looking at this assignment. Am I right, Chef?
Absolutely. Like I said, I think it's you just kind of choosing a menu and then just using some logic to kind of identify which ones you think will be the most expensive based on food costs and then labor, and then the two together. And then the one you figure out as well, I'm really thinking that's got a lot of components. It's smoked, which is going to take all day, and it's, served with 8 different things. And I'm thinking that's the one. And it's, and I just think it's a lot of just kind of narrowing it down. And I think you all will do fine on this one. But again, you know how to reach me if you're just at a loss.
All right, guys, are there any other questions? Or are you guys good to go? Yeah. Hope everybody take vitamin C so you don't end up like me and sick. And if you have any questions, let us know. I hope you have a great rest of your week. Have a fabulous weekend. And we'll see everybody next week. All right?
Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Chef. Good night.
Night.